So I hear a lot of people on the internet talking about SLOP. SLOP is taking over the internet. Bro, have you played the new Friend SLOP? There's this hot new deli that serves the slopwich, bro. You gotta get it. I feel like there's this mutual unspoken understanding as to what SLOP is, but I kinda wanna explore it today. So come along with me to the SLOP zone. All right, so just to make this easy, I'm gonna go ahead and Google the definition of slop real quick. Feed slops to, in parentheses, an animal, especially a pig. In quotations. They think a farmer's wife spends all her time slopping hogs. Dude, your wife is slopping hog? Up top. Slop is just leftovers. It's essentially garbage that you've had laying around that you're throwing into a trough for your animals to eat. It's not great, but quality isn't really the point. It's just to keep them fed. It's kind of like compost, but the worm is really big, and then you get to eat the worm after. Before we get down to specific examples, I want to know, what's the criteria? Well, I'm glad I asked. I personally think that in order to be slop, you have to have a combination of a couple things. Not every box necessarily needs to be checked, though. It's more of a, if it has more than one, it's probably slop kind of list. So number one, I think you need to have low effort. I do want to clarify that not all things that are low quality are slop, and not all slop is low quality. Some kid pointing a camera at his TV screen to record Fortnite clips isn't slop. I used to do that when I was 12, but it was Black Ops 2.
Hey, disconnected.
And there are some movies that have come out that, sure, they're visually impressive, but you know they didn't spend a lot of brain power coming up with the Lilo and Stitch remake. What if we took one of our classic movies and made it worse? And you really got the gears turning up there, guys. Great work. More brown and gray slop, please. Engagement farming. It has to jangle those keys in front of you to be able to keep that watch time up. Rage baiting, hiding something weird in the background for people to point out. Purposefully mispronouncing a word is one I see all the time. I see it everywhere. And it's all just so that way someone can comment, it's actually pronounced blueberry, not blurry blub. Clearly this adult man does not know how to pronounce this word. But I do. I am very smart. 3. Slop is purely for profit. It has no soul. A lot of short form slop is just re-uploaded content from streamers or podcasters with CapCut captions put on them. Reddit stories put into an AI voice with Minecraft parkour in the background. The big one that I've seen in recent years is on X the Everything app. People will just make bot accounts, pay for verification so that way they can monetize their posts, and then just monetize rage bait. Who's to say that they're only doing this with one account? There's probably hundreds that are just linked back to one person trying to make a shitload of money. Oh, and street interviews. Speaking of street interviews, while I was doing my research for this video, I realized that street interviews have been around for almost 70 years, maybe even more. And I'm not talking about the news interviewing some guy who had a dog crash through his roof. I'm talking about stuff like this.
What do you look for in a man?
Oh, money, of course. As long as he's got money, that's the most important thing there is.
I think the most thing is kindness and gentleness.
I think personality, warmth and affection for children are the main things.
Pardon me, sir. Gay son or thought daughter? The reporters in these videos are doing the same thing that you see street interviewers of today doing. What would you do if you caught your girlfriend cheating? I would leave her. What if you found that mid-boink session? I'd tell her to pack up and leave our apartment. What if you had a gun? I would run. Can you please? This gets 1 million likes. I'll put every woman on the world into a big fish bowl. They pick a topic that they're probably biased towards, then they ask a question in a, so you think this is crazy, right, kind of tone. And if they don't feed into the interviewer's biases, then they just ask leading questions to get them to the conclusion and prove that interviewer right.
What about his looks? Would you mind if he was very ugly?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Well, here we are again on the four corners of suburbia to ask unsuspecting passers-by, should husbands help with the weekend housework?
Well, I have plenty of other work to do outside, like the gardening and all that sort of thing. Oh, good Lord, no, I wouldn't say that. I don't think I should do
Why's
that. Well, poor old man, he works too hard. The wives have got nothing to do.
Hey, this is Editor Graham. This doesn't really have anything to do with what I just said, but it's funny, so I wanted to include it.
Would you go to the moon?
No.
You wouldn't like to go there?
No.
Where would you like to go?
Nowhere.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
Like you don't want to live anymore?
No.
It's low effort because all street interviews like this are. It's insanely easy to get someone talking about something controversial, which... And it's just engagement farming in an older format. Same thing with shows like Jerry Springer. Getting people with a short fuse that already have personal beef into a room with each other to fight is not exactly hard to do. I mean, Jubilee does the exact same thing and they get millions of views. It's clearly working. And both of these shows just use topics that would get anyone interested. In reality, be honest, how are you supposed to hear a story about a guy marrying a horse and you're not supposed to click, you're not supposed to tune in. That came out in 1998, by the way. The Truman Show was gonna come out 2 weeks after that episode aired. Do you think there was some inspiration with how invasive that show is? I'm noticing. And it's purely for money. Have you seen the way that the people that worked on that show talk about who they had on?
They just wish they could go back and say to her, don't do it.
This was the most vile and grotesque freak show that's ever been on television.
We just started pushing the needle towards red. Let's see how far we can push it.
But I watched that documentary on the Jerry Springer Show a couple months ago, and I realized it's been slop the whole time. But it got me thinking about what else that isn't necessarily from our current culture that still could be considered slop. And honestly, there are way more things that I feel like can be considered slop. Things like gossip magazines, early morning talk shows, those erotic novels that your aunt would get at the grocery store. You know, the ones that are right next to the happy birthday grandma cards and the toy dinosaurs that smell like used tires.
But let me just say this.
In order to enjoy this stuff, you really have to just turn your brain off. Just let the ooze get into the wrinkles of your brain and let it rot from the inside. Jerry Springer, Maury, Dr. Phil, basically the entire TLC channel. All of this is just slop for people that want someone that they can gawk at for 30 minutes. There's really only one reason that content like this exists. It's so that way someone who's insecure can see a person who's considered less than being put into the modern version of medieval stocks. They throw their metaphorical tomatoes at the town fool and boom. Little burst of dopamine. All for the low price of someone else's dignity. Hey, thank God that's not you, though. The king would never put you in the stocks. You gathered so much wheat this season. And we both know that the king loves his bread. But if you think about it, this stuff isn't really a modern problem. Executives have had their evil scientists with their swirly goggles and smoking beakers cooking up in a lab different ways to drain your attention span for decades at this point. But the 80s and 90s are when sensationalist TV really started to get its footing. Some of the higher-ups working on these shows realized that maybe it's not necessarily about the ratings, but about the viewership. These people basically invented the term no press is bad press. The more people you get talking about your show means the more people that watch, and that means more people that you can advertise shake weights to.
This is Shake Weight for Men, and it's going to kick your butt.
Hey. Speaking of ads, they make us a lot of money, and I like money. What if we just gave up on making good content and focused on what makes us money? And speaking of money, I want to thank today's sponsor, Roko's Basilisk. I don't care about the moral implications. I love money. But back in those days, you had to have a lot more resources to be able to create content that was widely accessible. So the people behind this proto-slop were really just limited to people who already had the connections and funds to be able to start a TV show on a whim. People like TV producers, executives, writers, and the cogs from Toontown. But the only thing that you need to fuel the slop generator now is internet access and editing software. So of course it feels like slop is always around us. The filter for who can make this stuff has just gotten wider. In modern day, slop is the easiest to point out because it's all over our feeds. It's almost impossible to scroll on Instagram and not have some AI generated garbage pop up. Every 20 or so posts, it throws me a video that I feel like would make a Facebook mom have a stroke.
Is it playtime, Daddy?
Whenever I get an out-of-context drama video about some streamer that I don't know or a content house that I'm completely unaware of, I feel like my brain is actively melting out of the side of my head. And it's just crazy to me that I can go about my day-to-day life without knowing an influencer who has millions of followers. Having 1 single million subscribers on YouTube back in the early 2000s meant you'd have articles written about you. You'd be interviewed by news stations. You'd end up with a Nickelodeon movie where your dad is John Cena. Shut up, Fred. So many things just don't feel like they have any weight or substance or impact. Movies that make billions of dollars have basically no impact on our culture. But that doesn't matter. It's made to sell tickets or have you sign up for a streaming service. Think about something like Frozen. That movie came out 12 years ago, but it was constantly talked about for years after it had come out. Kids were constantly singing Let It Go all the time. And when Despicable Me came out, dude, you could not go anywhere without seeing something Minion related. Full-length albums are written as surface level as possible by musicians, so that way it appeals to the widest audience possible instead of having more of an impact on less people, because that's just ticket sales. That's vinyl sales. You just want more. That's all it comes down to. YouTube videos are created with as many cuts and flashing lights as possible, so that way a younger generation that's grown up knowing nothing but overstimulation can keep their attention span on the screen for just long enough to get a Prize Picks ad in their face. Nah, dude, you're right. Kids should totally gamble. Go grab your mom's card. Food is made by YouTubers now, not even ones that surround themselves with food content. Why not? Have you bought Craig Dingle's new sausages? Well, if you do, make sure to use my promo code for 5% off of $200. Video games made by AAA studios are made in a quarter of the time that they should be made in, put on the market in a barely finished state, and they charge you $70 for maybe 5 hours of story content. I mean, why work on a good campaign at all when you can just throw all the money at graphics? And don't forget the map. Don't forget it's an open world. I mean, look at how big the map is. Not having fun? But there's so much flat dirt to be able to explore. Look at all the textures on that wall. That brick looks like a slightly more real brick than the last game. Oh, and before I forget, what if instead of $70, it was $120 and the deluxe edition is $500? You're cool with that, right? Just making sure. It's hard not to be fatigued. We're living in the age of what I'm coining as digital Kessler syndrome. Pause to read the definition, I'll just throw it up on screen real quick. But we're just surrounded by this content that's suffocating us, and it feels like we can't get past it. I don't want us to give in to this doomer idea that nothing good has come out in recent years, though. If you ignore all the stuff that's been able to push through regardless, you're spiting that creativity. I've been all over the country touring with my band, and I have seen this art performed in front of me with bands that we've played with at shows. I know content creators that pour their all into making their videos. Some indie games that I've played have been able to bring me to tears, and I only paid $10 for them. Also Severance. I don't really need to say anything else. Some of the best media in a long time has come out in the past 5 years alone. The sentiment that everything is slop now is so common that we're just kind of allowing ourselves to give in to subpar content. People usually say this whenever they want you to ignore a video that's genuinely insensitive or harmful, so I don't want you to turn your ears off when I say this. You can look away. Slop thrives on your attention, no matter how small the amount of it that it gets. And if it does get your attention, then it makes its money. And I've noticed that the not interested button does not really work on any of the platforms that I use it on. So honestly, if someone makes slop and I don't want to see it anymore, I just straight up block the account. I have so many people blocked on my TikTok. Not because I hate them or because they were hateful towards me or anything, but because I just did not want to see them on my feed anymore. I don't want to get too preachy though. I'm also guilty of staring at a screen, brain turned off, big old bug flying in my mouth and out my ear. My personal slop though, these Chinese jade cutting videos where they would get a mystery rock. It was wrapped in this like red tape so you didn't know what you were getting, and then they would take it to a saw and then they would cut it open. You know, ideally you want it to be jade because then you can make jewelry out of it, but it never was. It was never jade, but that's how it kept reeling me back in. I used to scroll and scroll on those videos because it felt like a slot machine to me. And I wasn't even the one making the money off of the damn rock. So I have no reason to act like slop is something that I'm above. But the way you consume media and the media that you choose to consume has a direct impact on how you see and move throughout the world. You're allowed to feel like there's nothing but slop out there nowadays because that's all that Instagram pushes on their algorithm. But if you choose to find little ways to interact more with the real world or with content that's just not garbage, it slowly starts to lessen that grip with every little interaction that you have with a stranger, no matter how small that interaction may be. I personally struggled heavily with social anxiety all throughout my childhood and my teenage years. Even honestly nowadays, I still struggle with it. Just a little bit. So trust me, I understand some apprehension when it comes to putting yourself out there. I made this YouTube account in January, but I had another account that I had made like 3 years ago that I never posted anything to because I chickened out. But I realized that nothing ever happens if you don't do anything. For a bit, that kind of feels nice. You never have anything bad happen to you, but that's only because nothing happens in your life, period. Going outside and touching grass is often thrown around as an insult to people that are just way too online, but the reality is it does help. Go on walks. Go see local bands. Start playing an instrument and start a band of your own. That's what I did in high school, and I mean, it got me to where I am today. Pick up a pencil and a sketchbook, a paintbrush, whatever. Just learn to create in the face of a world that wants every facet of your life to either be millennial gray or that weird yellow piss color that all those AI-generated pictures are. The only way to combat slop is to dilute it by making something real. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end. I worked really hard on this and had a lot of technical difficulties trying to get this shit together, and this was a huge leap of faith for me. I have a lot of good stuff coming this year, so make sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell so that way you don't miss out on any of that. And give this video a like if I made you smile and clap and maybe giggle of sorts. Now get out of my house. Blows you up with my mind. Green screen explosion effects.